Great, awesome. So we hope you're enjoying the time up here on the roof. It's just gorgeous. So anyways, thank you for joining us. My name is Raydell Peischler. I'm the Director of Programming at Government Executive Media Group, and it's a delight to have you all here. Tonight is Innovation After Hours, where we're going to discuss tech and the future of workforce. So just to set us up here, we are going to have a panel of experts across the government. They're going to be talking about things like what the skills for employees need right now to be dealing with emerging technology in the public sector, as well as how to recruit top talent out of the private sector and into the public sector. And then lastly, what the future of government and employees to be ready for in terms of the technology. I think it's cutting out, but in any case, we're excited to get this conversation started. So please, if you haven't already, silence your cell phones, but don't put them away. We hope that you've been using the hashtag, which is InnoAfterHours. So take pictures of this fabulous place, take selfies, tweet out comments or questions. We're going to be looking for your tweets. And then lastly, we absolutely want to thank our sponsor for this evening. So please help me thank IBM for helping us put on this program tonight. So wonderful. So I'm going to bring up Nicole Gardner with IBM, VP of Global Business Services, to just give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Raydell, and good evening, everybody. This is working too well. It's hard for me to face you. Thank you. That's perfect. Okay. Gorgeous view, and it's such a lovely evening. So first I want to say thank you for taking time out. Luckily, it's a little cooler today. I'm glad it's today and not yesterday. To come up and join us for this evening. I'm a vice president in IBM's Global Business Services in our public sector group, and we serve our government clients both in the federal government and in the state and local market. The workforce of the future is a really, really important topic. So whether we're talking about new skills for cloud, for cognitive, for cyber, just being able to attract that skill set, but also how to keep employees fresh, keep them on top of what they need to know in order to be successful and to thrive, and also helping our clients to think about the strategies that you need for talent management in the new environment. You mentioned, Raydell, being able to attract talent out of the private sector, and we know that there's a lot of movement between the two groups. How acquisition actually happens in government is also a really important topic as well. So as we think about the new dimensions of the gig economy, what kind of implications does that have for how government procures services from vendors like us? How do we look at acquisition and understand what the requirements are for personnel who are going to be coming on? So there's so many layers and so many interesting dimensions to how all of this is evolving. So we're just excited, and we're very grateful to NextGov and Defense One for hosting this. This whole format is kind of interesting. It's like a meetup on steroids with really good wine and really nice food, which if you go to a lot of meetups, that doesn't normally happen, so that's fantastic. I want to thank our panelists who have spent time this evening with us. We know you have really busy schedules, and we're really just very, very grateful that you're here to share this conversation. And we're excited to hear what all of you think. It's a complicated topic. It's a topic to stay if you're at IBM and you're looking at like new collar workers and all the different skills that need to happen in order to make everybody thrive. This is a really important topic. So we look forward to the conversation, and we hope that we'll have more conversations in the future. So thanks very much, and I think I'm going to turn it back to Raydell. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Nicole. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Frank Kunkel up here to get us started and bring up the panelists.
Thanks. Hopefully my mic doesn't cut out like it did for you. How's everyone doing today? Good, great, exceptionally well. I always do better at events where I can drink and chill out and relax instead of a stuffy environment. So a little about me, I like to cover technology, workforce issues. They're very important right now. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. And that's enough about me, actually. I want to kick it over to my panelists, let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Blake on the end and work our way this way. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you work, that sort of thing.
Sure. My name's Blake Henderson. I'm here representing the VA Center for Innovation with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I work a lot on applications to enable telehealth health delivery within the VA.
My name is Tracy Walker. Oh, hello. And I am with the U.S. Digital Service. I lead the acquisition team there. And prior to coming to U.S. Digital Service, I've been a career Fed doing contracting, procurement. And so my mission is basically to try to help change the way that we buy tech in the government.
My name is Liz Hogue. I am the Engage Program Manager at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and our Engage program is focused on bringing people in and sending people out from the government into industry to partner better with industry.
So I want to start right there, Liz, with Engage. And I think it's an interesting program, but you guys have started it within the last year, right? Tell us a little bit more about it. You guys work to increase the knowledge base within NGA by sending folks out and bringing folks in. And I guess tell us a little bit more about it.
So at NGA, we are an intelligence agency, so that comes with brings with it some security challenges, making sure everybody has a clearance and that sort of thing. But it is also a time for us when we're trying to move out into the open, do more things out in the open, partner more with organizations that are our industry partners and our non-traditional partners. And what we found was that our people tend to come into the government or come into the intelligence community, come into NGA and stay for many, many years. And that's great. We love that. But we also think there is a benefit to employees going outside the government and having an experience working in an industry, being able to challenge or work under different processes, different ways of thinking. And we started thinking that would be great for our employees to be able to go out. And in the government, we do have some avenues to be able to send people out. The Department of Defense has a training with industry program, Intergovernmental Personnel Agreement Act programs. And we wanted to carry that one step further. And that was to bring representatives of industry and academia into NGA and basically experience what it's like to work for the government and give us their perspective while they're working with us on, hey, what about doing this a different way? What about thinking about this in a different concept or a different process? So basically an exchange of talent. We expect that anybody who participates with us, whether they're coming into NGA or one of our people going out, is basically going to be a force multiplier. The throughput of Engage is, of course, not large enough for the entire agency, but we want the benefit of these exchanges to benefit everybody in the agency and help us think differently and better with our traditional and non-traditional partners.
And just to add to it, how many folks have been put in industry or academia, and how many have come through? You've had some challenges there, right? It's not an easy thing to do. Also, because you're an IC agency, as you mentioned, that's another, I expect, hurdle that you have to address.
So Engage rolled out in May of 2016 at the GeoInt conference, which is the big conference for geospatial intelligence. So last year, the director in his speech rolled out the idea of Engage. And if you didn't see it, it's little e and then NGA, because that's us, and then Geospatial Exchange. In the past year, we have had about 26 exchanges. Some of them have already run their course. They went out for 6 months or came in for 6 months. Some of them will continue for up to 2 to 3 years, depending on the vehicle we used. And we also have the out people. So we've had about 13 come in, 13 go out, and about 3 that have already been completed. So to some, 26 or 29 may not be an exceptionally large number, but for us, being a part of the government where doing something like this is really new, it was a great number for us, and we expect to expand that number greatly into the next year or two.
All right, we'll come back to that, because I think if I was a 20-something analyst or lower-level NGA folks, which is the kind of the guys and gals that you want to target for those, to keep them engaged in the workforce, bring some new skills back. It's a good way to keep people and retain them for a while, I would imagine. But we'll get to that. That's a good segue for Blake, who's been at VA for 11 years and was telling me that in the middle of that, you did Peace Corps for a bit. They held your job for 2.5 years. You came back to it and went right back to the same place?
It was 2010, and it was not a pretty picture, so I went back to VA. So yeah, I've been realizing today, talking with a lot of folks, how much of a rarity I guess I am, that I've been with the same agency for about 12 years. So much so that I actually find myself caring about it now. So I'll just provide perspective from that point of view today.
That goes hand in hand with your mission, though. We were talking prior, and one of the things that you guys are trying to do is make more use of your mission and sell that to prospective people who want to work there or who want jobs, right? You have a unique mission in government that goes back to the time of Abraham Lincoln, right? That's part of your mission. So how are you guys using that now to try to sort of fill your talent gap, if you will, and especially in the tech side?
Sure. I think, we all in the federal government have to sell to our strengths, and we're not going to win based on, salary of competing and saying we're going to, pay the most money. We have to appeal to folks based on the quality of our missions. In VA, having worked there after a few years, I started to realize that both my grandfathers had received care from VA. My uncle received care, did the GI Bill through VA. I have a father-in-law now who gets care through VA. So come to realize, it's a pretty important American institution. And so that's one of the things that's motivated me. And I think we absolutely have to use that as a selling point as we look to recruit folks into VA.
Something else that you guys do internally I was interested in was the VA Innovators Network. So tell us a little bit more about that, what it does. It's more built for existing employees to share ideas, correct?
Correct. I would say as opposed to Liz's program, Engage, which I think is awesome at bringing some new folks into the picture, we've been focused heavily on engaging our current employees, and one of the ways we've been doing that is through an investment structure of basically letting employees from all levels, whether director on down to you name it, propose ideas to improve our healthcare delivery. And we have an investment structure called Spark Seed Spread. The Spark starts with $8,000 grants, Spread is up to 20, and then, Seed is up to 20, and then Spread is up to around 200 or 250K. So it's a significant amount of resources for some of those higher level investments, but we're essentially just pairing those investments with training. So training in lean product development, business case development. We want to give our employees a sense of agency, a sense that they can change things within our healthcare system.
What kind of use do you get out of it? Are you seeing a lot of folks put their ideas forward, and it's like a non-biased environment they can pitch these things in, right? Who judges them, and how does that come to fruition, if you will?
So I guess one example would be a housekeeping aide down in Jackson, Mississippi. He noticed that the wheelchairs that we were purchasing all had black handles on them, and so did the wheels. And so he just decided that, hey, this is not really usable. People are mistaking the wheel for the handle, and they're getting their hands stuck in the wheel. So we gave him a few $100s for a grant, and he painted all the handles on his wheelchair a different color, and now everybody can see them, and they're getting their hands jammed much less within their wheelchair. So this is an example of how a small investment and getting an employee to think outside the box can give them some recognition, and now he's recognized by his hospital director, other folks, and it's good for our organizational health and morale.
Right. How many of you are familiar with U.S. Digital Service? Raise your hands if you are. Some of you. Well, I don't know if that's good for you or bad for you, Tracy. I think it's good for you. From your perspective, though, U.S. Digital Service, that was created a couple of years ago. It was an Obama-era group that came in post-healthcare.gov. Post-healthcare.gov failure of rollout, if you will. I mean, in nice language. I could say it nicer, but I don't have to. So you guys have, in a way, changed, you've brought a new way of looking at technology and the workforce to government. I wonder, from your perspective, what have they done to sort of change the game? What are you seeing right now?
So we're really focused on bringing in engineers, designers, product managers, which are not roles that typically exist in the government today, and really trying to bring them in and kind of where you guys were saying from industry. We look at it as a tour of duty to come in and work in the civic workforce and get inspired by a mission, and they come in from maybe 3 months to 6 months to a couple years to leave Silicon Valley or high-paid jobs and come in and really try to figure out, okay, what is government doing? How do we build products that matter for service delivery? How do we improve, veterans engagement? How do we, we've done College Scorecard, a couple other products like that. And my role specifically is kind of looking at how do we buy better technology while everyone else is looking at how do we build better technology. So it is a very startup-y feel. It's a small group, and we're not necessarily looking to expand. We're recruiting daily, but it is a sell to have people come out and kind of leave their lives and come to DC and really be part of this. And they go away very rewarded, and I think also leave the imprint of what they've been able to show is possible within a government environment if given the right skill sets, the right top cover, and really saying, okay, we need to make a better citizen engagement. We need to be able to allow people to get things quicker, faster. The process should not be slowed down by technology, and that's kind of what we see a lot of times. So.
Yeah. Just looking back, even words that you use like citizen engagement, I don't feel like I heard those words as much 3-4 years ago, but I do now. And that's something that you guys look for. User experience is another key thing.
Yeah, user
The
experience.
things that you guys help get built have to work for citizens at large, whether they're veterans. And USDS has done quite a bit of substantial work at VA lately, consolidating something like 1,000 different phone numbers down to one number you can call. I think it's the 311 number. What is it? MyVA. You can call that number, and if you're a veteran, you may have dozens of different things that you need for services. That number can actually tell you where you actually have to call. Before that, it was on the onus was on the veteran and his or herself to find those things. They've also consolidated their websites from 950 or so on down to one portal, which is also key.
Yeah.
And one example, the guy who's the acting administrator now, you were telling me right before we came on here, he did what at Google?
So he created the spam filter for Google.
This is Matt
Cutts, our current administrator. And so bringing that knowledge of what was needed at a time when technology did not really, even Google the way we think of it now was still a startup at one point in time. And so getting in and trying to convince people that spam filter was going to be necessary was something he did.
That took a while, right?
And so
That wasn't like an overnight
now he's
thing.
working to, help, us with other agencies convince, like, why do we need to, go to agile software development instead of waterfall? Why do we need user experience and citizen engagement? So he's taking over the helm, as an acting administrator now from Mikey Dickerson, and it's, been really, seamless change for us. We're still rolling with all the things that we're doing, and, like I said, recruiting and trying to bring more people in and get excited about the projects that we're doing.
Right, like my spam
God
filter.
God bless him and his spam filter.
I was going to say mine has at
Medal of
least
Freedom.
3,000 or 4,000 different messages. So that if that's not an example of good user experience, I don't know what would be. So at least these are kind of people that we are bringing into government in a different way. That's a good thing. I hate to harp on you more, but prior to this discussion, you're also telling me about something else that I felt was quite important, the way that you're trying to educate the contracting workforce, because you can talk all day about bringing in talent and stuff to government, but if you can't buy or bring in the technology that you want efficiently, quickly, more agile, you're still screwed in a way. You're still going to be behind the 8 ball. So
Exactly. So, one of the things that we looked at in bringing all new talent to do a tour of duty is the fact that when USDS started, President Obama wanted to make sure that acquisition was also included in this, which for me and all the acquisition community was like, yay, we're at the table. We're usually not at the table. And so being part of that has been really cool. But basically what we looked at is the fact that you cannot bring in people that are buyers in commercial world and immediately be able to put them into a role that is going going to let them buy for the government. You know, we have to go through many years of learning how to do that, get trusted by the government in order to actually be able to spend the dollars of that. So what I've been working on, and the rest of my team, is trying to develop a training program, which is almost like a master's level class for contracting professionals, which gives them all the knowledge that they need to do in order to understand how to actually administer and run agile software development contracts, so that you don't include a requirements traceability matrix or documents that you don't need, or how do I get to cloud? How do I understand that it's more of a utility-based service than just something that can fit into a time and materials or firm fixed price box? And so by educating the contracting officers through a 5 to 6 month program, they're going to become specialists. So when they go back to their program people, they're going to be the ones really saying, hey, we need to negotiate this harder. You're asking for a solution and you haven't even defined your problem yet. Let's start there and see where we go from that, as kind of being a valued member of the entire process, as opposed to something that's kind of a cog in the wheel at the back. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the contracting process, that responsibility for making sure the contract is working, lies with that person who signs their name on the line. And if they're not informed buyers of what they're actually getting, there's a lot of challenges in that. So we really are trying to bring that through. We've run through 2 programs of 30 contracting officers each, graduated about 54 of them, and right now we're in the process of expanding it to the rest of the government, so that both industry and training institutions can pick it up. We're packaging it together, we're open sourcing it, we're releasing all the content we created, and hopefully this will build a much bigger movement in that.
Just for perspective, I was one of the few sad people who had to look at the budget proposal when it came out bright and early a couple weeks back. And you can get a sense for how much money is spent on acquisition in government just on tech alone. It was approximately $100 billion or so. And I think they said the vast majority of that's allocated to old systems, legacy systems, things that might be 30, 40. Even VA, I found, has 2 systems over 45 years old. Sorry, brah.
No,
But I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money, right?
It's published where we spend 90% of our budget maintaining legacy systems, and that's not good. That's a real problem.
That's huge. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about competitive edges that you guys may or may not have. I know, Blake, you touched on the money aspect is tough. You can't pay a federal employee the same as you could pay a federal cyber expert, for example. You can't pay them the same as Booz Allen could pay them or someone else. So we'll let you each go down the line here. I want to hear what strategies you might employ to do that. And then, Elizabeth, I'm going to have you go into something a little bit longer when it gets to you. We'll start with Blake.
Sure. So I've been thinking about this one since earlier this week, and I think the agency is going to have to play to its strengths again, and showing that you're bringing someone in to do something that they can't do anywhere else because of the mission or because of working for the government. And so I think cybersecurity is a tough sell for us at VA. But if we said, you can work as a hospital administrator, managing a vertically integrated population, or be a health analytics expert within a vertically integrated population, we could sell that. So I don't have any silver bullets in terms of how do we get some of the top cybersecurity folks into the VA. I think digital service is a fantastic start. The Presidential Innovation Fellows. But we still have some work to do to figure out how to get the real incentivized push-pull model. I really love the Engage program. I'm going to be talking to Liz about how we can do something like that.
I was looking, I was doing some research. I don't remember exactly how many vacancies you guys had open, but I did sit in on some hearing testimony. Dave Powner, in the audience, her boss was testifying, and they were saying how many vacancies of cyber positions were in some of these federal agencies. And HHS had 2 officials up there before Congress, and they had 1,300 vacancies right now of 3,000 jobs, and 37 of them were critical openings. And they didn't even have job descriptions for those openings, which kind of plays to the point that government has to get its shit together a little bit on that.
I think, and you heard Tracy talk about changing the acquisition structure, which I really hope you're successful with that, because I think a close second to that in terms of dysfunction is our HR and hiring, and how we are able to measure value and the latitude we have in identifying value in the public sector. So it's a very close second in terms of acquisitions, maybe, depending on who
People
you
like
are.
size, too. VA is the second largest federal, well, besides Postal Service. So behind Defense Department, second largest agency, you could say, come work for the second largest federal agency. We'll save vet lives,
Yeah.
IT shop's 8,000 people, give or take, right? It's huge. Anyway, sorry to go on a tangent. Tracy?
So in our organization, what we look at a lot, especially with the talent that's coming in, is that our engineers really like tough problems. And these are some of the toughest problems to solve in the nation right now. And so giving them access to be able to work on something like that is kind of really cool. For our designers and our product people, again, like you said, it's the citizen experience and the user research that they get to do, and actually talking and connecting to citizens that are people that are very much like who they have in their own family, or who they see on a street and want to like engage with and help with. So I think having that as still part of like the mission, the main primary mission, is very helpful in just trying to say like, hey, you get to work on something really difficult, you get to talk to people and change lives, come and do this, and it's not a forever thing too. So that's one of the things that I think is changing a little bit about the federal workforce, is that it used to be that this was your career. It was, you come in, I'm saying this as I came out of college and have been a career fed, so I am part of that. But I've bounced around to different agencies, but I haven't yet gone out to the other side to say, like, what does that look like? However, a lot of them are coming in, and we're finding some people staying and saying, oh, I want to actually go take an actual federal job. I want to stay. I want to keep working on this project. I'm not ready to go back yet. And I think that's kind of where that mix is going to have a little bit of the longevity of, I came, I solved a really cool problem, and it turns out I really like it, and I want to stay in the federal government. And I think as we kind of adopt technology, adopt better tools, we're going to see a younger workforce wanting to get in, not for the reasons that say, okay, this is your long-time career, but this is something neat and something cool that you get to do today. And we want to, I think to your part, make it easy to come in and make it easy to leave, but not, and I'm losing mine as well. Okay, there we go. So
I like that tagline of not a forever thing. I feel like it also would work well for like a relationship status gone wrong. Like, if this is not a forever thing, like, let's move on, right? Temporary, we'll get there. Okay, so I now want to go to Elizabeth here, because in the IC you have some competitive advantages and disadvantages, right? The cool thing is you're the IC, you can be a spy, you can do all your cool geospatial skills to map the world and do dope stuff. But then you're also competing with a lot of the same talent that the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, all those agencies are competing for. So how do you make yourself stand out when you're looking at getting people in?
So our number one thing when we're reaching out now is to focus on the mission. I think as the VA and USDS, NGA, we have a fabulous mission. And it's much broader probably than most people think, unless they've kind of checked out our webpage, that it includes a humanitarian piece, it includes the warfighter support, it's the intelligence community, it's the safety and navigation. It's really broad. And it really makes a difference to people every single day. And our messaging and our, getting out there and trying to get people interested in NGA is selling that mission. You can be a part of something that is so much bigger than you. You can be a part of our mission for come in under Engage. You can be a temporary employee, you can be a term employee, you can come in from your current organization, work with us, do cool work, check us out, see if you want to stay or go. But for the time that you're with us in the government, and I think we know this from being in the government, you immediately start doing really cool work. And NGA has great, cool work to offer. We're in the cutting edge. I wasn't at GEOINT last week, but I did participate and read the director's speeches. We're at this cutting edge of data. There's so much data out there right now that we have to figure out a way to work it into our systems, to analyze it, to use it. And that's where some of this new technology and these new talents are going to come in, is to help NGA as we kind of are at this point to jump into the future. And that's an exciting thing to sell people.
Do you have a single biggest need right now that you're looking for people? And I have a second question after that.
I don't think we have a single specific need. I think we have a need of the developers and the designers and the user experience, everything that is going to come together to help us move forward. So on our Engage webpage, we offer opportunities for Engage that are throughout our agency, and there are specific things that we've identified, but they partner both across the agency and with other organizations or with your company, with your academic institution. And if you see yourself there, we invite, that's what the webpage is all about, see yourself in our mission and then come participate with us. So we think it's broad. And then we work to determine what is that niche or where is that niche in the agency that we can use that talent.
One final thing, going back to what you mentioned about the Engage program. So if I'm an industry guy or gal, and I do some pretty cool stuff that I think would be interesting to the NGA, and I want to go through that program and come in to your organization through it, what do I do?
So right on our webpage, we have where organizations can, or people can submit, we call it a submission. We are not a contract. This is not an acquisition issue. So you submit your submission, which sounds a little odd, but you tell us what it is that you do. What is it that you want to do, and why do you think it's going to fit in with NGA? We evaluate it. It goes right to the subject matter experts to see if it's something that they're interested in. We engage with you directly, and then we decide if we can make basically a match. And if we make a match, then the Engage program helps walk you through the step-by-step process of getting in the door. Right now, everybody has to have a clearance. So we suggest that anybody who wants to come goes and takes a look at the clearance form, and make sure they're going to be comfortable with that. Plan out where you might want to be. Just tell us what it is that you do, what you want to do, and we can see if we can find a place for it in our agency.
If I sweet talk you really nice, will you let a journalist come in there and work for a year or something? No, maybe not.
Have to talk to our OCC
I'll
people.
fill out a form. One other thing I want to bug you about, alternative recruiting methods. So you guys are discussing the potential use of something different, a different way to bring talent in.
So Engage, what we did is we went through all the flexibilities that we had as an agency to bring people in to the agency. There are fellowships, there are IPAs, there's highly qualified experts, there's term and temp appointments. And we reviewed all of these appointments and we said, here we are, this great agency with this fabulous mission, out there using the standard recruitment process that we've used for 20, 30, 40 years, which is come sign in and stay forever or until you decide to leave. But in the meantime, we're going to treat you like you're always going to be here. And that's not really where the world is today. And I think that's what Blake and Tracy were talking about. Start thinking about how these people, the talent that you want, is thinking. So in Engage, we already include the use of term and temp employees. We actually have one coming in this summer from a university who's going to work a special project as a temporary employee being brought onto our roles. And it's a really cool project. And, you know, it was like a spark of an idea, and hopefully it's the start. But we also look at term employees, right? We've been hiring for you to stay forever. But you could be a term employee and come in, work for a couple years, do great work like you do at USDS, and then, you know, call it a day. I did my patriotic duty. I serviced a mission. I was a part of that change. Or you could love it so much that you decide you want to stay. So now we're reaching out to a group whose goals and intents may not be what we're used to recruiting.
This is part of a larger effort, really, for you guys to get out more, it seems like. You just hired a chief ventures officer, right? Dr. David Bray, who is technically still the CIO at the FCC, but will be leaving for your organization soon, which is a completely new position, right? First of its kind in government, I believe.
It is a brand new position. We're very excited to have Dr. Bray. He's going to come in and be the chief venture officer, again, pointing out that the government engaging with industry, you know, outside of these standard channels that we've been using for decades, is where we have to go as a government. We've got to have better partnerships, better relationships with industry, and, you know, work every avenue, whether it's a chief venture officer or an engaged person coming in to learn our business or us to send somebody out. Absolutely.
Right. Hey, so we have some microphones. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists? You can ask me questions too, but I probably won't answer them unless they're fun questions. Got one here?
Thank you. Andrew Hyde from the State Department. And this is not a political question, but I'm interested if all of you, each of you, have found with the new administration coming in, whether you felt a sort of shift of momentum in what you're doing. And again, it's not political, it's just a sense of new team coming in, trying to get a grasp of the federal government, coming from outside in some cases. Just wondering a little bit how you're dealing with the transition writ large over the last 6 months and sort of where you see that going.
We've got time, so why don't all three of you take a...
Sure. I would say the major shift on the VA side has been a trend by our secretary, Dr. Shulkin, to want to make Veterans Care a community-first organization. So when veterans have a need, whether seeing a doctor, they first think that they can go down the street to a non-VA hospital and have really excellent access there versus necessarily getting an appointment with their VA, which we have 155 hospitals, but it still takes the average veteran over an hour to get to our hospitals. So I think this is a really healthy trend. It's really whatever works best to get veterans timely care. And so that's the major trend we've seen, I think.
From my perspective, personally, I started under in the EOP working on contracts under the previous administration, and when they came in on a platform of social media, and they walk into the EOP and they have no technology available to them. It's very old school tech, and they're like, oh my gosh, we need this, we need Twitter, we need the things that we just had on the outside. And so there was a big shift to start bringing that in, and now with this one, it's even more. Like, how can we get more technology? How can we make it faster? How can we make it better? So I don't think that as a trend is changing at all. And from our perspective, we look at tech and changing how tech is being built and bought in the government as a nonpartisan kind of thing. It's a problem whichever way it goes right now, and so we just don't have enough systems that react the way that we want them to do and work the way that we do because of all the legacy, and we just have a problem, especially in the acquisition piece, of being able to get new technology quickly. The innovators, the startups who are building something, it's probably going to take 5 years of making sure they have the right past performance or market research or something that they've actually developed a product before we'll actually see it in the government. And that's kind of being outpaced by technology. And so a lot of the things that they're looking at is how do we keep making that a better push? How do we get things done faster, better, and of course the citizen engagement on that too.
And I think we are excited about the focus on defense and intelligence, and the focus now as the people that are building into the positions in the Pentagon, as we start to implement laws that were passed last year. In particular for Engage, we have a public-private talent exchange program that was authorized by the NDAA. So as we draft the policy with the current leadership, we're very excited about being able to implement a way to bring industry people, while they are still employees of industry, into the government, and that's going to be a part of this PPTEP.
No, I just want to add something to that. Technology is one of the few things that this administration's done that hasn't caused a lot of controversy, right? The White House Office of American Innovation played a role in VA's big decision to sole source what could be a $15 to $20 billion electronic health records contract.
Oh yeah,
at
that's
VA.
the other big change.
Yeah, they were part of that discussion. They were also, there was also discussion prior to Trump coming in that USDS wouldn't even exist anymore. People were saying that. They were saying the same thing about 18F.
We're still here.
Yeah, and they're still here, and they're still funded, because guess what? The budget's not totally through yet, but I mean, there's funding in the budget for these organizations. And then lastly, on the IT modernization front, there's legislation currently sitting in the Senate that's already passed the House unanimously. It's very bipartisan. I mean, there's a very strong need for that. You can't turn the news on and see something that's not controversial, but this is one thing that the administration's done that isn't. And I've said that time and again. It seems to, I mean, it really is the only thing that isn't controversial. Any other questions? Going once? Oh, we got one here.
I suppose this is perhaps a question you've addressed before, but how do you see technology, given our current culture of we must be co-located, my boss must physically see me in my seat, how do you see, especially with the future workforce, technology eliminating some of the cruft of commuting, of meetings, of latency and information transfer? Is that enough to start with?
So, the technology exists to allow us to do all of that, and like you said, it's a cultural thing, but it's also something that, in contracts too, it is also a thing where, you know, a lot of times we can't source the right kind of companies because they're all in California and they don't want to move here, and we put a requirement in our contract that you must be here in order to build this. And there's no real reason for that other than I need to put eyes on you. Now, you know, yes, there is when you're looking at the IC world, and like you have to be in a skiff and some of those things. Those do have some exceptions, but in general, a lot of the stuff that we're doing does not. So, you know, I've definitely worked with teams that are co-located, and making sure you have the right tools is the big thing. But I think at this point now, there is a push just to get the basic collaboration tools and some of that stuff, cloud, move to those things. And as we do that, I think that pressure to have to be in your seat, visibly, all that stuff is going to expand a little bit, as well as, you know, I mean, nobody likes to commute into DC anyway, so.
So even at the NGA, we are teleworking these days. So, you know, we're embracing that idea, change that culture, that you have to be in the seat. There are still requirements that you be in a seat that we have provided, but we are, you know, moving out. We are located here. We have a big office in St. Louis, and we also have these new things called outposts. We have a new one in the Valley, in Silicon Valley. So it creates the opportunity that people who don't want to move here or to our other main office in St. Louis, you know, there's an opportunity that maybe there is something closer, and we're just starting to step into that, that you don't have to be co-located with your exact team, and really taking advantage of all the technology to ensure that collaboration. It's a baby step for us, but it's the intelligence community, and we're moving in the right direction.
I would say in VA's case, I feel like we're well past a tipping point in terms of a tolerance for people not being co-located. One of our early innovations was a radiology program where we essentially enabled radiologists to be grouped regionally, and this was back in the 90s, so they could you know, read radiology reports overnight and kind of become more efficient. And we're seeing a lot of our specialty care services group regionally. So things like that allow us to be a lot more efficient with these really specialized resources and allocate them across the whole system, instead of just being at, you know, having one at each medical center. We could have 20 in a regional hub, and they can treat thousands of veterans. So I see it as a very exciting time.
I'd love to see it too, as the cost of doing business is going to be spread out a lot more when you don't have to include that in your workforce, either, you know, the people that are moving in, or, you know, relocations, or also on contracts of the fact that you have to work within a very specific place. Spreading that out will actually drive the cost of everything down and the overhead, I think. So that's another big thing of where do we look at, where can we find dollars to save? That's one of the big places. That's just an easy win to start off, I think, at the top of it.
It seems to me that'd be a competitive advantage too. If I was Agency X, Agency Y, Agency X lets you telework X amount of days from home, blah, blah, blah. I'd rather work for Agency X, right? I call it not working very hard because I don't feel like I'm going to the refrigerator like every other 10 minutes when I work at home. But I mean, you know, a lot of people get a lot of stuff done at home, and I find myself more efficient that way too. Any further questions? Yeah, we got two down here, so.
Thank you. My name is Michael Pollard, Commodity Futures Trading Commission. One of the things we struggle with is gathering the swaps reporting data from industries, banks, financial recording data. What are some strategies you've used to change the conversation about innovation, modernization versus traditional upgrade? I'm not an IT specialist, but I find my IT specialists wanting to, or having a difficult time divorcing themselves from maintaining the current systems we have versus giving additional money to modernizations and upgrades and innovating.
Well, in our cases, we've had some luck with open competitions, so letting industry know what problems we're having, and giving them a sample data set, and you know, with some parameters, and seeing if they can come up with some kind of proof of concept. But other than the technology innovation, it seems like where you're coming from, you have to come up with some kind of pull model for others to participate and want to participate. So that would be tougher. But you know, that's one of the things that's worked for us is open competitions.
Yeah, real quick. I think one of the shifts in my mind that I've seen in this space is that in the tech industry, we as government are a consumer. We used to be like the industry builder, and now we're kind of on the backseat of being a consumer in that. And I think that we need to kind of learn how to play as a consumer in the same space as other regulatory places, other companies who are doing very similar things, large companies who IT is not their initial mission, like airline industry or something. They still have to buy and have tech and have a good experience with the citizens, like, you know, how upset you are if you try to check into your flight and you can't get the Southwest app up. Yeah, that gets thrown across. You know, so looking at industries like that and saying, okay, we know IT is not your initial that's not your main thing. How are you doing it, and trying to capture what they're doing and bring that in as best practices, and then finding where does that meet the difference between what is a government regulation and just a best practice or a status quo that you have to kind of go after, and then going in and targeting those and trying to get the wins. And also, you know, from our perspective, starting small, finding out whether something works or not, and then expanding from that standpoint, because a lot of times we think we have to do the entire system. And you can't find enough money to replace the entire system. You can find enough money to do what is the biggest problem that your people have trying to access your system. Maybe it's a logon thing. Let's just fix that. That doesn't cost a lot. And once you fix that, how do I then go to the next piece of that and trying to go through that piece? So, you know, eating the elephant, you know, one bite at a time, whatever that is. So,
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but we'll
exactly.
go with it. Last question.
More sangria.
Did you have a little too much sangria before you came up here?
Hi, my name is Tom Weiland. I actually am recently retired from TSA, but I had a question for you specifically on 2210s, the IT series. IT at one point, I suppose, was kind of a homogeneous mass, maybe back in the 60s or so, but it has become such a diversified group now, from, you know, cyber to Intel to, you know, help desk. How do you actually ensure that when you're hiring against the 2210 series that you have enough of each of those subspecialties?
So USDS avoided that question. We used the Schedule A hiring authority to bring in the term appointments and you know, worked with OPM and made that a possibility for all agencies to actually hire under the Schedule A hiring authority for digital service expertise. But I agree with you 100%. It's the same as we find in the acquisition community as well. If we're going to have a trained specialist that knows tech, maybe there should be a specialized series for them specifically related to that skill set. So I agree with you 100%. But I don't.
Well, an NGA is in a different kind of a system. We are a Title X accepted service system, and we have work roles that we have created that describe the work that we use, which kind of keeps us out of that particular problem. But it still does require that you identify all the different types of work appropriately, so you can make sure that you're matching the right people with that work.
Thank our panelists, Blake, Liz, and Tracy. Great job, guys. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for coming, braving the traffic.